You know, if you remember, about 2% of the population, it's a very simple business. 2% of the population causes 90% of the crime. So when you start decimating that 2%, boom, that's why we have it's an amazing number when you think. It's just crime over and over and over. 2% creates 90% of the crime. Isn't that amazing?
Hello, everybody. Today's another day, and we're continuing down the rabbit hole of Ilhan Omar's debaucherous fraud scheme. I'm going to present you with the fraud tapes where Keith Ellison is promising not to prosecute and protect the Somali community, and Ilhan Omar continuously saying she didn't know what was going on, but I have pictures and I have receipts. Let's start with Keith Ellison, our first guilty party. He's the first Muslim elected to the U.S. Congress. Did you know that? He converted to Islam during his years in college. Used to be a Catholic, but they converted him. And I believe it's all connected. The Muslim connection. Now, in these recordings, which are becoming increasingly hard to find, by the way, you could hear Keith Ellison clearly pledging his support to these individuals. And these individuals later become his donators. Things that make you go,
about it. I don't run the agencies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But let me just finish by saying, but often the agencies call on my lawyers to represent them. And so it's good that we're talking because we've been in a series of conversations with Jody Harpstead as late as a week ago on how you cannot crunch down on these, because here's the thing, is as big as you are collectively, most are pretty small. And you're running small, tiny businesses out of business over nothing. And a lot of times, if you think there's a problem, I mean, look, everybody has to comply with what the rules are. But if somebody submits something that's not in the right format, then you call them and say, this is not in the right format. Not you're out, you're done, your contracts are over. And so this has my attention. I'm extremely frustrated by it. But we are in the middle of a battle with the agencies now. And I can tell you this, Walls agrees with me that this piddly, stupid stuff running small people out of business is terrible. But it's the problem of it's the problem of, it's the classic problem. If he's here and this guy here is giving these businesses a hard time, these folks somehow say, hey, they're picking on me, and he's like, oh, us? No, we're not. And so it's this back and forth. So now what we got to do is make it clear that this guy has got to stop it, right? But it's the but he knows that there's a lot of unfair, discriminatory stuff going on with East African businesses. I know it. These department heads like, Julie Herbstead now know that we know it. And she says, we're going to stop doing it. But I don't believe it until you tell me they've stopped doing it. Because we're talking about when the rubber hits the road, right? Or the car, what's going to happen then? You can say you're not doing it. But if some sister who just opened her childcare business is getting the runaround, then for her it's real. So we've got to stay specific. There will be cases that, I want you to feel free to call me directly. Feel free to call me directly.
incredible. And I want you to pay attention to his language. Our brothers and sisters, which are referring to his Muslim connection to these people, these are the people who are always screaming about separation of church and state, and you could clearly hear him say that they are in the middle of a battle with these agencies, that there's some kind of discrimination against them, even though they're being heavily funded. Let's continue.
But we want to get really specific here. And I work in the political field, and I understand very well how all this operates. And if I want to be frank, and I think everyone in this room wants to be frank, and this is a safe space, we're a collective in that sense. There is a fight, there's a battle in this state, as well as in this country, for communities that look like us, having to fight to protect and keep what we have. And the only way we can protect what we have is by inserting ourselves into the political arena, putting our votes where it needs to be, but most importantly, putting our dollars in the right place and supporting candidates that will fight to protect our interests.
That's right.
You can only protect our interests when we have your back, and you don't have to worry about who's behind you, right? And we have to be frank and honest. You are dealing with market forces and political situations, and you have to operate in the best manner that you can operate in this state, with your donors, with your power base. But if you are secure in your donor base, and if you are secure in your power base, you can act the way you want to act.
Money is freedom. So
Absolutely. And our community, our business owners, we are not the same community as 25 years ago. The amount of money circulating in our community today is powerful. And we haven't really harnessed it in a very meaningful way to support people at the highest level and ensure that they are comfortable and safe, knowing that they can advocate for our communities without regard to your next fundraiser. Acting in the best interests of the community. And for example, right now, one of the biggest issues facing in our community is the CACFP program.
Insane. You could hear Keith say, that's right, money is freedom. And you could hear Keith's visitors literally talking about the beef with the Minnesota Department of Education. Later on in the video, we'll review the court case that happens 2 years later referencing this so-called beef, and I started to understand why they're trying to suppress these recordings so heavily. Now, these recordings took place 2 years before the court cases happened. You do the math on if they knew what was going on. Let's continue hearing Keith's grimy strategy.
Well, brother, let me just tell you this. Of course, I'm here to help. I mean, but let me be clear. I'm not here because I think it's going to help my re-election. I don't care about no re-election. I voluntarily threw my congressional career away. I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. It's boring to me. So to do this, to do what I'm doing now. So of course, I didn't leave that job to do nothing in this job. I mean, am I going to get more hits than I got by prosecuting a police officer and giving them life in prison? Right? So we're going to, so let's just go fight these people. So the question is figuring out exactly how to put a stop to it, right? So what happened? The how is the real question for me here. The how. How do we do it? Because we know we should do it. We kind of know a little bit about who's doing it. And now we need to figure out exactly how we do it.
Let me just give you an example.
So grimy. Maybe he wouldn't be bored in Congress if he was actually doing something for the taxpayer. And for him to reference putting police officers away for the rest of their lives is incredible to hear. This is supposed to be the top cop, people. This is what it looks like when you sleep with the enemy. And in my humble opinion, this is what collusion with criminals looks like. This should tell you everything you need to know about the defund the police that started in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now let's continue on hearing what Keith has to say.
And just send me the names of all these folks who are just hung up and like hanging on by a thread and probably ain't gonna survive unless they get their money soon. That I can take that list and start saying, and I can call Jody Harpstead, the person over at Education, and say, what is going on? Why am I getting these complaints? And I'll call them in my office and demand some explanations.
That's right, Keith says it. Our education money that's supposed to go to teaching children are going directly to criminals. And his number one concern is keeping the criminal structure surviving. So if any of them are struggling, bring it up right to Keith and he'll set them straight, being their attack dog. Now, let me show you how Mr. Ellison acts when he's brought before a committee to answer for these crimes.
You're the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota. Do I have that correct? That's a yes?
Sir, you're aware of my job. You know the answer to that.
You're not going to answer my questions? Are we going to start this way? Are you the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, yes or no?
You know the answer.
Mr. Ellison, you're in my courtroom now. You're under oath. So I suggest that you answer my questions. You the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the state of Minnesota? Yes or no? Let's try another question. Are you familiar with the $9 billion in historic fraud out of your state, including the $250 million in the Feeding Our Future program alone? You familiar with that? Don't turn to the pages in your book to get your potted answers. Are you familiar with it? Yes or no?
Yes, I am familiar with it.
Very familiar, aren't you? Because the people who ran the Feeding Our Futures program came to you in your official office in the state capitol December 11th, 2021, and asked for your help in getting investigators off their backs. They complained to you for upwards of an hour about state investigators going after them, and they begged you to help them. And you agreed to it, amazingly. And we know you did.
That's not
because
true.
it's all caught on tape.
Yeah, it is
Every
caught on-
single sentence is caught on tape. Here's what you said. Let's
And
take a look.
obviously you didn't listen
said,
to the
it's not a
tape.
question. You said to them, send me the names of all these folks who are investigating them. You said to them, send me their names. And I'll take that list and I'll call the person over at education who is investigating them and say, what's going on? Why am I getting these complaints? Then he went on to say, I already have my team working on this. What day should we get together to discuss it again? You made pledge after pledge to them. You said, we've got to make sure this guy who's investigating them stops it. You said, you have my attention. I'm concerned about this. You said, let's go fight these people, meaning the people who are investigating the fraud. Why'd you do it? Why'd you help them?
Are you going to let me answer?
Please, we're all ears.
So first of all, you're cherry picking quotes out of there.
Why did you help them?
I thought you were going to let me answer.
Why did you
Are you
help
going to let
them?
me answer?
Why did you help
You
them?
let me answer and I'll answer you.
Tell the truth and I'll let you answer.
I will tell the truth.
Good.
Let's do that.
That'd be a nice change. Why'd you help them?
Now see, Mr. Chairman, I didn't come here to be insulted. I came here
You
voluntarily.
came here for the truth. Let's
I
have
came
it.
here- I
Why
didn't
did
come
you
here
help
vol- I
them? The
came here
quotes are
voluntarily.
here. They're
So
in
look,
black and white, and every
yeah,
member of this audience
and they're
can
cherry-
listen to the
and they're-
recording. It's 54 minutes long.
Do
It's
you-
all in public.
does-
You can Google it right now and listen
Right,
to it.
and listen to it
Why'd
all.
you help them?
First of all, I didn't help them.
You did help
No,
them.
I did not. I certainly didn't.
You're saying you didn't do anything for them. You didn't.
Well, wait a minute.
I already have my team working on this again. That's not you?
I have
It's a
my
ventriloquist?
my team assisted with the information that led to the prosecution and conviction of these
No,
people.
you didn't. You didn't lift
Yes,
a finger
we
to
did.
prosecute him. No, you did not. You
No,
didn't
because
lift a finger
it
to
was a
prosecute
federal
him. You had,
prosecution.
BS. You had
Okay,
whistleblowers
but
come to you as early as
you're
2019.
You're the one talking BS.
Hey, listen, it's my
You're the
time.
one who doesn't know what you're talking about,
Oh,
sir.
no, sir. You
You're the
now have
one
encountered the truth and you don't like it.
cherry-picking
Why'd you take their
You're the
money?
one take
Why'd
their
you
money.
take their money?
I didn't.
You took
No, that's a false statement.
$10,000.
No, that's a false statement. That is a false
$10,000
statement.
9 days after the meeting.
False statement.
You took $10,000. Here's what
Untrue.
happened. They went to your office.
That's a
They
false
solicited
statement.
money from
They
you.
did
They
not come to
solicited
my
help
office.
from you.
That's also wrong.
They came to your office.
No,
It
they
was your
didn't.
official office. You
No, they
met with them
didn't.
for 54 minutes.
No, they didn't.
asked you for help. You pledged it to them, and they talked repeatedly about money. In fact, it's all they talked
That's
about.
a lie.
Money, 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 money. They
True.
said, we
Untrue.
will put our dollars in the right place. We will support candidates that will fight to protect our interests. You replied, that's right. They said,
Oh,
if you are
that is
securing
not
your
true.
donor base and securing your power base, you can act the way you want. You replied, money is freedom. They said the amount of money circulating, I'm reading the transcript. The amount of money circulating in our community
misreading the
today is
transcript.
powerful, and we haven't realizing it in a meaningful way. And you said, give me the specifics. And 9 days
Sir,
later, you took $10,000
that's a lie.
from people who were then indicted. It's in your reports. Why'd
Sir,
you do it?
Sir,
Was it worth it?
You know what? This is a theatrical
10,000.
performance.
This is the truth.
It
This
has
is what
nothing to
accountability
do-
looks like, of which you've had
No,
none.
no, the
you
fact-
helped fraudsters defraud your
Lie.
state and this government of $9
Sir,
billion, and
sir,
you got a
this is-
fat campaign contribution out of
This is
it.
completely
You ought to be indicted.
untrue. Well,
That's the truth.
I think we've made the point. Let's keep the tenor
Well,
just
for
a
the
little more
record,
calm.
Oh, I'll ask how I want
He's
to,
lying,
Senator Paul.
and that's the truth.
Oh no, this is all on the record,
no, sir.
Did you bother
You are-
Did you bother to investigate where the money that you facilitated their fraud for, where it went? Do you know where it went, what it was used for, the fraudulent money? I do, because we just heard testimony about it yesterday.
Because we
the
were
funds
key
went
players
to
in the
hundreds of millions of
investigation.
dollars to terrorist
Yes, we
groups,
do
to
know.
transnational criminal organizations, to the drug trade, to drug trafficking, to child trafficking. And you took $10,000
That's a lie.
and helped them do it. You know, the other thing is,
Untrue statement.
whistleblowers came to you as early as 2019. Let's look. As early as
This is
2019,
this is
whistleblower. Don't talk over me.
No,
as
no,
early
you're
as
talking over me.
2019, it's my hearing, pal. As early as
I'm not your pal.
2019,
Don't call me pal.
whistleblowers came to. Well, I should call you prisoner because you ought to be in jail.
Well, we'll see what you can
In
do about it.
2019, whistleblowers came to you in your office and referred to you fraud allegations from Feeding Our Futures, and you blew them off. Listen, your own state newspaper
That's a lie.
investigated it. The Minnesota Star Tribune, the Partners in Nutrition, brought its concerns to the Attorney General's office in 2018 and in 2019, and you did nothing. You did nothing for years. The only action you took is, once all these fraudsters came to your office and asked you to get involved and offered you money,
Did not come to
then
my
you got
office.
involved.
They
Then
did
you
not-
took the money, and then you got involved.
They did not come to my office. You're completely wrong about that.
You met with them
I did
for
not take
54
anybody's money.
minutes, and you took $10,000, and they also gave your family money. They gave your family thousands of dollars in campaign contributions in addition to what they gave
false
you.
statement.
Let's put the
This is completely untrue.
the New York Post.
Yeah, we know the New York Post.
Minnesota Keith Ellison, AG, accepted campaign donations from individuals linked to the $250 million COVID fraud scheme after they were in your office. The donations came on December 20th.
Sir,
you
this
met
is
with them on December the 11th, and on January 20th, the FBI knocked over their headquarters.
No.
That's the sequence of events here.
No, it's not.
You've been right at the center of this fraud thing from the beginning, and you've enabled it. And sir,
the false
you
statement,
should resign.
And sir, you should resign. I was thinking the same thing about you.
Resign.
Absolutely treacherous. These people will lie to the American people over and over again. Even when the proof is in the pudding, they still will lie to you. Now do you see why there is no accountability in the state? They're all involved in it. There can't be any accountability because they're all complicit in the crime. This is why they have to do more at the federal level. Now, let's meet Keith and Omar's brothers and sisters who facilitated this crime and
More
were
guilty
protected.
pleas today in the sprawling Feeding Our Future fraud scheme, including from a woman who recruited members of her family to join the scam and allegedly collected money to bribe a juror. Lou Ragoose was in court today and breaks it down for us. Lou?
Julie, Ikram Muhammad stole taxpayer money, recruited others to do the same, collected kickbacks, and laundered money to try to cover it up, taking part in just about every element of the $300 million Feeding Our Future fraud scheme. She's also the one who secretly recorded Attorney General Keith Ellison trying to fool him into helping them.
Ikram, do you have anything to say?
Ikram Muhammad joined the $300 million Feeding Our Future fraud scheme as a consultant for Executive Director Amy Bach, recruiting others to take part, soliciting kickbacks in return, even signing up her husband, mother, sister, and brothers to run phony meal sites. Her husband and sister claim to run 2 meal sites out of this little building in North Minneapolis, billing for more than 1 million phantom meals to feed children in need. All told, Muhammad's actions led to the theft of $14.7 million in taxpayer money.
Are you going to be able to pay back any of the money?
Although she wouldn't talk after her guilty plea, Muhammad used to be one of the most vocal defendants claiming innocence.
There was lines at Safari looping around Lake Street.
She's the one who secretly recorded Attorney General Keith Ellison a month before the criminal case went public with a group of fellow fraudsters claiming racism and trying to fool Ellison into fighting those who shut off the flow of money.
This has been going up for some time.
What the heck, man? Who's minding the store?
The sponsor actually took the initiative to sue. Good for her. I love it.
In return for her guilty plea, prosecutors agreed not to charge Muhammad in any other cases they're investigating.
Does this mean you won't be charged in the bribe case?
Previously in open court, prosecutors said Muhammad helped collect money in the Somali community to bribe a juror in the first Feeding Our Future trial. While she won't face further charges, most of those affiliated with her are left with little choice but to plead guilty as well. 4 more from Muhammad's family will plead guilty Friday. Her husband also pleaded guilty today. That leaves just her brother, Gandhi Muhammad, claiming innocence in their indictment. He turned down a plea deal today and said he'll stand trial alone starting on April 20th. Ikram Muhammad will be sentenced at a later date. She's looking at about 10 years in prison.
It is just absolutely fascinating and appalling to listen to the sound now from that meeting with Ellison, how brazen she was.
Yeah, absolutely. She sounds confident. I mean,
Yeah.
if you didn't know anything, she sounded convincing, you might
Absolutely.
say. But man, when you listen to it in hindsight, it's maddening.
Yeah, it is maddening. And speaking of that, how would you say, in the scheme of things, these plea deals, everyone, of course, has to make sacrifices and compromise in a
Right.
plea deal, but how would you rate them? Are these, they're just trying to get the cases done and get them off the docket? Or
Well,
is this,
I
are these
wouldn't
great
say that.
deals?
I would think that the prosecutors are happy to get Ikram Muhammad to plead guilty because she was such a central figure. Of course, she maybe would have faced a few more years in prison if it had gone to trial and she was found guilty. But they got her now, and just her brother is left, and that eases the load a little bit because there still are several more that they have to get through
before they start charging all those other fraud cases that we've talked about potentially.
All right. Thank you, Lou.
So, what do you think, people? The person who created the bill for feeding our future, Ilhan Omar, do you still believe she has no idea what's going on and she was never involved in any of the fraud at all? Let me know.